I hadn't planned on staying after the job. Her backyard was already dim when I finished skimming the leaves from the pool, the water a dull silver under the porch light. The hum of cicadas made the air feel thicker, like everything was holding its breath. I should have packed up my gear and gone, but I lingered, winding the hose a little too slowly, glancing at the sliding glass door. She appeared there without a sound, one hand resting on the frame. A loose sweater, sleeves pushed up to her elbows, hair pinned up in a way that looked like it had been done hours ago and forgotten. She didn't smile, just tilted her head, as if deciding whether to let me in on a secret. "Still working?" she asked. "Almost done," I said, though my hands had already stopped moving. The night smelled like wet grass and something faintly floral drifting from inside. She held the door open a little wider, an invitation that wasn't a word. "You can wash up if you want," she said. "You look tired." I wasn't tired. My pulse was too fast for that. But I nodded, stepped inside, and left the sliding door open so the cool air from outside slipped in behind me. Her kitchen was warm and quiet, a single pendant light over the counter casting soft shadows. She poured water into a glass and set it near me without asking. Her fingers brushed the rim after mine had already touched it. "You've been helping here a lot lately," she said, leaning on the counter. "Do you ever get bored of it?" I laughed under my breath. "It's honest work." "That's not what I asked." She had a way of looking at me that made my answers shrink. I shrugged, stared at the water in the glass. She didn't push. The silence stretched, not awkward but heavy, like we were both aware of something just out of reach. A clock ticked somewhere in the living room. She moved past me to close the sliding door, her sweater brushing my arm. She smelled faintly of rain, though it hadn't rained all day. When she turned back, her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "You're very young," she said softly. "You know that, right?" I tried to joke. "Is that your way of saying I'm not doing the job right?" But she didn't smile. Her hand tightened on the edge of the counter, knuckles pale. "I shouldn't be." She stopped herself, pressed her lips together. "Never mind." I waited, but she didn't finish. The clock kept ticking. Outside, a branch creaked against the siding. Then she stepped closer, just one small step, enough that I could see the faint freckles across her collarbone. Her voice dropped even lower. "I shouldn't be doing this." Before I could ask what she meant, her fingers reached for mine, hesitant then firmer. She pulled me closer, not a full embrace, just enough that the space between us vanished. Her forehead almost touched mine, her breath was warm and uneven. A chime sounded from somewhere in the house. Not the clock. A phone on the counter lit up with a name I didn't recognize. She glanced at it, then at me. Her hand stayed on mine. "Don't," she whispered, but the rest of the sentence didn't come. Her phone stopped buzzing but stayed lit on the counter, the name still glowing like a warning. She turned it face down with a small, almost guilty movement, then stepped back, palms smoothing down her sweater as if erasing what had just happened. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "That was impulsive." I didn't move. The warmth of her fingers still clung to my skin. "It's okay," I said, though my voice came out rougher than I intended. She busied herself at the sink, rinsing an already clean mug. Water hissed. She let it run longer than necessary. Over the rush of it she said, "I've been alone a long time. At least, mostly alone." Her shoulders rose, stayed there. "My husband travels. We haven't been together in years. But we're still married on paper." I watched the way she leaned on the counter, arms braced like she might fold. "I didn't know," I said quietly. "You're not supposed to." She turned off the tap, but didn't look at me. "I'm not supposed to want anyone to know." I shifted my weight, wishing my hands had somewhere to go. "I'm not just some kid cleaning pools." That finally made her glance over. "No," she said, voice softer. "You're not. Silence again. The hum of the refrigerator. My pulse in my ears. I thought of the first day I'd shown up here, 2 summers ago, when I still had a campus ID clipped to my shorts, and she had barely acknowledged me except to hand me a list of chores. Since then there had been small exchanges, lemonade on hot days, the occasional question about my classes, nothing like this. I'd told myself she was just kind. But my eyes had started to find her in doorways, in windows, in the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear while reading a bill. I know the age thing is weird, I said. And you're you? And I'm stop. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, cut me off without looking up. You don't have to explain. You're not the one who should feel guilty. But she did look up then, and something unguarded flickered across her face. Not guilt, exactly, but recognition. Like she saw the hours I'd spent thinking about her, the pauses before I knocked on the door, the way I slowed my packing at dusk hoping she might come outside. A low roll of thunder muttered somewhere far off. We both glanced toward the sliding glass door. She stepped closer without seeming to decide to. Her hand brushed mine again, a casual touch that wasn't casual at all, and stayed there. We didn't say anything. The distance between us shrank until we were sharing the same quiet, the same faint smell of rain and soap. She exhaled, a tremor in it. I don't know what we're doing, she said. I don't either, I admitted. But neither of us pulled away. Rain had begun to pepper the deck, soft at first, then heavier. The smell of wet concrete seeped into the kitchen as she reached to close the sliding door. Her hand hesitated on the handle when headlights swept briefly across the windows. Who's that? I asked, stepping closer. Her face changed, just a flicker. Probably nothing. But she was already wiping her palms on her sweater, straightening her posture. A car door shut outside. Footsteps on gravel. The screen of her phone, still face down, buzzed again. She cursed under her breath, then forced a small smile at me. Stay here. Before I could answer, she slipped into the hallway. I heard her voice, low, clipped, as she opened the front door. Another voice replied, male, older, weary. My chest tightened. Through the crack of the kitchen doorway I caught a glimpse, a tall man in a travel-stained coat setting down a suitcase. He brushed past her into the living room. She glanced back at me for half a second, eyes wide. Then the doors swung shut between us. I stayed frozen, listening. Their conversation was muffled but tense. You didn't tell me you were coming, she said. I needed to check on some things, the man replied. You could have called. Would you have answered? A long silence. The fridge hummed like static. I should have slipped out the back, but my legs wouldn't move. Instead, I heard my heartbeat and the rain intensifying on the glass. She reappeared in the kitchen doorway, a practiced smile now fixed to her face. This is my husband, she said, almost too lightly. Back from one of his trips. He followed her in, eyes flicking over me like I was part of the furniture. Pool guy, he said. Yes, she answered quickly. He was just leaving. I nodded, trying to speak but nothing came out. My jacket felt too heavy, my hands damp. He turned away, already pulling his phone from his pocket, uninterested. She stepped between us slightly, as if to block a view that wasn't there. I'll walk him out, she murmured. We moved into the dim hallway. She didn't look at me, but her fingers brushed mine in passing, a tiny electric contact. Go out the side door, she whispered. Please. I wanted to say something, ask her if this was goodbye, if everything we'd just let slip would be sealed up again, but the sound of the man's voice in the other room swallowed my words. At the side door she finally faced me. Her eyes were bright, defiant and scared at once. She raised a hand as if to touch my cheek but stopped an inch away. I shouldn't, she began. We stood there, breath mingling, the storm loud around us. Neither of us moved, caught between retreat and something that felt inevitable. The storm didn't let up overnight. By morning the deck was slick, the pool a gray mirror of the sky. I hadn't planned to come back so soon, but my phone buzzed at dawn with a single message. "Can you stop by?" No name. Just hers. I told myself it was about the pool, about the damage from the rain. But my hands trembled on the steering wheel the whole drive over. Her husband's car was still in the driveway when I pulled up. For a second I nearly kept going, but she appeared at the front door, hair damp, sweater sleeves rolled to the elbows. She waved me inside before I could think twice. "He's sleeping," she whispered. "Flight last night. He'll be out for hours." I followed her through the quiet house. The air smelled of coffee and something sharper, like nerves. She kept moving until we reached the enclosed porch at the back. She shut the door softly behind us. Rain whispered on the windows. "I shouldn't have called you," she said, facing the glass. "But I can't pretend last night didn't happen." My pulse kicked. "I've been pretending for months," I blurted. "That I don't wait for you to show up at the window, or ask me to stay a little longer. I can't do it anymore." She turned eyes wide. "You don't understand what this would cost me." "I do," I said. "That's why I kept quiet." Her breath caught. She took a step toward me, then stopped. "He doesn't love me," she whispered. "Not the way he used to. Not the way I—" She cut herself off, fists clenching at her sides. "You're the first person who's even looked at me in years. Then why push me away? Because if I start, I won't stop." Her voice cracked on the last word. We stood inches apart, the rain a soft roar. Every detail was too sharp, the way her hair curled against her neck, the tremor in her hands. I wanted to reach for her but stayed still, afraid the whole house would shatter around us. "I'm jealous," she said suddenly, almost like a confession. "Of how young you are, of how much you still have ahead. I hate myself for wanting you." I swallowed hard. "I'm not some kid you're stealing time from. I'm here because I want to be." Her eyes filled, not with tears but with something heavier. She reached out, fingers grazing my wrist, a single point of contact that felt like fire. "Say it," she whispered. "I want you," I said. My voice was steady, finally. We both froze. Her lips parted, her hand rising as if to cup my face. Through the thin wall, a door clicked open, footsteps in the hallway. We didn't move. The footsteps in the hallway stopped just short of the porch door. We held our breath. Then a soft knock. Her husband's voice. "You out here?" She dropped my wrist, stepped back fast, forcing calm into her tone. "Just checking the storm damage." The door cracked open. He peered in, hair rumpled from sleep, travel coat still hanging off one shoulder. "You're not alone," he said flatly, eyes moving to me. I tried to speak. She cut in first. "He's here about the pool," she said, voice too quick. "The pool?" he repeated. "In a thunderstorm?" She opened her mouth, closed it. His gaze hardened. "You think I don't notice things?" he said quietly. "I'm not gone as much as you think." The silence was louder than the rain. Then he tossed something onto the wicker chair between us, a small black phone, older model, screen cracked. "Found it in your drawer. Thought you'd at least hide it better." I didn't understand at first. She did. Color drained from her face. "You went through my things? You've been texting him," he said. "For months." She reached for the phone but stopped halfway. "It wasn't," she faltered. "I can explain." He looked at me. "You should leave." I stayed rooted, muscles locked. My stomach was a knot but my hands were fists. "I'm not here to cause trouble," I managed. "You already have," he said. Her eyes flicked to me, pleading, warning, I couldn't tell. "Please," she whispered. Just go. I turned, opened the porch door, but paused in the threshold. You don't own her, I said quietly, surprising even myself. His jaw tightened. He didn't answer. She did. Stop, she breathed, a tremor running through her. Both of you. For a moment, everything was a blur of rain and tension. Then, almost gently, he stepped back. Do what you want, he said, voice low. But remember who you promised. He walked away without slamming the door, which somehow felt worse. The house seemed to exhale. She sank into a chair, pressing her palms to her eyes. He knew, she murmured. All this time. I stood there, soaked from the rain sneaking in through the open door, unsure whether to go to her or leave. Why didn't you tell me? I asked softly. She lowered her hands, looking up at me with something between shame and defiance. Because I wanted at least one thing in my life to be mine. The words hit harder than a slap. I crossed the porch, crouched beside her. I'm not a thing, I said. Her fingers found mine under the table, hesitant then holding on. The rain drummed louder, a curtain around us. For a moment it felt like we were alone again, but nothing about it was safe anymore. The storm had thinned to a mist by evening. The house was quiet, but not calm. It felt like the air after a lightning strike, charged and brittle. She was in the kitchen when I came back in, a single lamp throwing soft gold over her face. Her husband's suitcase was gone. The front door had closed behind him an hour ago without a word. She didn't look up as I entered. You shouldn't have come back, she said. I had to, I replied. My voice sounded strange to me, steady but frayed at the edges. You called me this morning. You didn't ask for the pool. You asked for me. She set down the glass she was holding. He knows everything now. He'll make sure I lose what's left of my reputation, my house, maybe even the divorce settlement. You still have your whole life ahead. Walk away while you can. I shook my head. I'm already here. She turned then, eyes rimmed red but dry. Why? She demanded, finally letting the words out. Why stay? You've seen what I am. You've seen what this is. I've seen you, I said. Not the mess. Not the guilt. Just you. For a heartbeat she closed her eyes as if the words hurt. Then she laughed, a sharp, small sound. You think that's enough? No, I said. But it's what I've got. She gripped the counter. You don't understand what it's like to be this age. To have built something and watched it rot underneath you. To feel like you're already someone's mistake. I understand what it's like to want something you're told you shouldn't, I said quietly. To wait for a sign that never comes. Her breath trembled. She stepped toward me slowly, like approaching a wild animal. If we do this, she whispered, it isn't just a fling. It isn't hiding anymore. It's everything. I know. Her hand hovered at my chest, fingers splayed but not touching. And you're not scared? I'm terrified, I admitted. But not of you. We stood like that, rain pattering against the windows, her hands still suspended between us. Then, finally, she laid her palm flat over my heart. It was a small, decisive movement, but it felt like the ground shifting. Then this is me choosing, she said. For once. I covered her hand with mine. Neither of us moved closer, but neither stepped back. In the dim light, our reflection in the glass looked like two people caught mid-step, not yet falling, not yet standing still. Outside, the clouds were breaking. A thin slice of sunlight cut through the gray and landed across the kitchen floor. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But the silence between us was no longer empty. It was a space waiting to be filled. The morning after the storm, the world felt washed clean. Wet leaves clung to the driveway, sunlight glinting off puddles like little mirrors. I parked at the curb and sat there for a while, gripping the steering wheel. Her house looked the same, but everything inside it had shifted. She opened the door before I knocked, as if she'd been waiting. No makeup, hair down, a soft gray t-shirt. The sight of her like that, unguarded, hit harder than anything she'd ever said. "He left this morning," she murmured. "Took the last suitcase. Said the papers will come soon." She stepped back to let me in. I don't know what happens now. Inside, the rooms felt different without him, lighter, but echoing. We stood in the kitchen where everything had begun, the counter, the rain-streaked windows, the pendant light casting its warm circle. She touched the edge of the counter, fingers tracing old coffee stains. "I thought I'd feel free," she said quietly. "Instead, I just feel emptied out." I moved closer, unsure of my own footing. "You don't have to decide anything today." She looked up at me. "I've already decided more than I ever thought I would. You were the only thing I didn't plan." We both laughed at that, the sound brittle but real. Then she reached for the glass of water she'd poured and didn't drink. "Tell me what you want," she said. "No careful words. No pretending." I took a breath. "I want a chance," I said. "A real one. Not stolen hours, not waiting for him to leave town. A chance to see if this is something that can survive daylight." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "You know it won't be easy. People will talk. I'm older. I'm complicated." "I know," I said. "But you're also the first person who ever made me feel like more than my age." She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them. "You're the first person who's made me feel seen in years," she whispered. For a long moment neither of us moved. Then she stepped forward and placed her forehead against mine, gentle, steady. The contact was small but everything inside it was big: forgiveness, risk, the beginnings of something that might be love. We didn't talk about moving in together, or how friends or family would react. We didn't draw up plans. We just stood in her quiet kitchen, holding on to each other like two people trying to learn a new language. Outside, sunlight spilled through the windows and caught in her hair. For the first time, I didn't feel like the kid by the pool. I felt like someone choosing, too. She whispered. "So where do we go from here?" I smiled, not knowing the answer but not afraid of it anymore. "Forward," I said softly. "Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?"